What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Play the Fight Song podcast. All the fellows are here and ready to talk post-conference championship, the final college football rankings, about the college football playoff, and then bowl games later. We also have awards we wanted to give out after the season. Each of us have different things that we wanted to highlight, so we put them all into a document, started rolling all these different awards. We'll get into that later. How's everybody feeling? First of all, I know Schaefer's trying to dive a little bit more into college basketball. Parks believes McCord was done wrong at Ohio State, and Reese is just dealing with what 50% of men deal with in this world. It's tough.
More than that.
Probably more. They just don't have the confidence like I do to just go out there and fight it publicly. But me and Rocky are getting taking care of business.
Yeah, hey, that's all you need. That's all you need. Schaefer, are you deep into college basketball right now? Is this like a 2-week?
No, I don't know what you're talking about. You're forcing me into this.
I am 100%
texting the group chat of what your picks are, and I'm like, fine, I'll take something tonight.
We got a 2-week window before the bowl games start. That hoops is going on.
Going. It's called the in-season tournament of the NBA. That's going on this week during my off time, and then we roll with college football bowl games next Friday. So that's
I did watch an NBA game last night. A little bit of it, the sound off.
Boo.
So I was watching.
Why would you play with the sound off?
I was watching Sicario.
It's the best part about it. The atmosphere last night for a game in the early December was I couldn't believe it. It was nothing I'd ever seen before.
Hey, one of my favorite memories, just because we're talking about college basketball and it just pops in my head. One of my favorite memories of 1209 was we threw on remember when we threw on Boise State versus Air Force, and it was I think it was me, Shafe, and JP. Parks was at home or something like that. We took it minus 19.5 on a random Tuesday night. It's 10 o'clock at night. And we're just sweating this thing out. We're screaming at the TV for $10. Ashton's why are you guys yelling at the TV? It's it's $10. It's a morale thing. We're just
diabolical.
That was one of my favorite memories.
The worst part about that is that we were talking about it.
Gotta cover the spread.
We were talking about it, and then Parks goes, "Wait, I want to ride too." And he tells us, he doesn't tell us till after that he didn't get the hook because he won from a hook and we all pushed. He won and we lost from a hook. And he didn't tell us that.
I was going to let that story be a good thing, but I mean, it was a good bet. I'll take the money.
That was a great
night.
That
was rough. Would you explain your tag over there, Parks? I'm curious what you're saying.
I mean, the fandom. I mean, the comments back on Kyle McCord posting that he's going into the transfer portal were he should go play at Columbus Community College. He should go. He was not that bad. I mean, they went 12-1, and he was pretty good. I mean, what? I mean,
I think they're so used to greatness at quarterback, Heisman finalist. Good.
Yeah, I mean, I think he wasn't as good as CJ Stroud was, but it wasn't that far off. I mean, community college, I mean, they were cursing his name. I don't think I've seen a fan base happier to get a quarterback out that led them to 12 wins than Ohio State this year. It's asinine.
Worse than the Oklahoma fans. And they chanted for Caleb Williams, and then Caleb struggled, and they chanted back for Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, they boo anybody who does anything wrong at the quarterback position.
I mean, CJ Stroud leads the NFL in passing yards right now. So, I mean, you were gonna have a downgrade at quarterback just a little bit. I think the expectation for Ohio State is oblivious, to say the least. I think.
Yeah. Does this have anything to do with Kyle McCord maybe visiting Nebraska? Does that have anything to do with that too?
No, I don't know. That would take up a huge chunk of our collective if he did that. So I don't know. But yeah, he is visiting Nebraska.
I saw post about it.
They've already been 3 places.
Let's jump into some recent news within college football. A couple of those pieces of news is the portal opening on Monday. Opened yesterday officially. You heard names prior to it. Most of those would have been grad transfers. Now opens on Monday. Flies. There's names everywhere. Big names. We'll rattle some of those off. But let's go to some hirings real quick that we didn't get a chance to touch on last week. I'll just kind of rattle through these. Sean Lewis, the former offensive coordinator of Colorado, now the head guy at San Diego State. Spencer Danielson promoted at Boise State. He was an interim after Avalos' firing. Takes them they win the Mountain West and he gets the job. I think that's kind of the right move for Boise State. He seems to be a guy that really wants to be there. Trent Bray, the defensive coordinator at Oregon State, promoted to head guy at Oregon State. Curt Cignetti, JMU's head coach, now hired at Indiana. And I think this is another piece of that puzzle. We talked about Indiana really investing in football. I think this is a good hire for them. And then Willie Fritz at Tulane hired at Houston. So those are some bigger hires along the way. Indiana, Houston, Oregon State, Boise, and San Diego State, all with new guys going into next year. I think out of these hirings, I think the Cignetti one's probably the best hire here, just from what he's done at JMU and built a program. And I don't see him as a guy that's going to hop like all over program to program and use Indiana as a jumping stone 2 or 3 years in if it goes well. But I mean, I could be wrong. The Willie Fritz one is interesting to me still, because like Tulane was all right, and then they were not very good, and then they had a breakout year last year, and then they had another good year this year. And is he really the guy that Houston needs? I'm not sure. I'm not going to act like I'm an expert in the coaching world, but is there any of those 5 that really jumped out to you guys that you thought would be are good hires, or you're kind of questioning a little bit?
I mean, those 5 I think are all the right hires. I mean, for every situation that you're going through, Boise and Oregon State, I think the transition you're making right now at Oregon State, hiring within is a good thing. It can kind of help keep the ship afloat, especially when a lot of guys are trying to get out. They're trying to maintain at least some of that core within the change that they're going to have. Moving on to next year, I think Boise, kind of the same thing. I don't really know who you get at that point. I said it last week. I think it's one of the easiest coaching jobs in all of college football. I think they get pretty mediocre to / good mid-major 5 3-star talent, and I don't think you really need a lot of coaching skill in that league. And then, I mean, as far as Cignetti and Fritz, for your point, JP, I think both of them are kind of older guys. I understand what you're saying. Like, why would Fritz go to that job? Maybe he's just maybe this is like his last Power 5 shot before maybe he retires. I think they're both in their 60s, if I'm mistaken.
I think so.
So I see Cignetti as like, hey, you're in maybe the second biggest league in the country. You know, this is an opportunity for you to put a team on the map. And then Fritz, like, I don't know, give Houston 5, maybe 10 years in this huge 16-team conference in the Big 12 and see how you can go without a fight. And I'm sure they're going to both be compensated pretty damn well, whether they succeed or fail.
I think Houston's at a point where they would just want to win now. Like, the Holgorsen thing didn't work. I think that fan base, they put a lot of money into that football program in the last couple of years before the move to the Big 12, and then it just kind of slowed down a little bit, like momentum-wise. But I think they're ready to go now, and they're going to need to be in a wide-open Big 12. How about Sean Lewis to San Diego State, a team that wasn't offensive, like, for the last, as long as I can remember. They played really good defense, ran the ball, played good special teams. It just wasn't very high-flying, and he's going to bring in that offense, and they're just going to change their identity immediately. It'll be interesting to see how long it takes for that team to go in the right direction and get back on the right track. Let's talk Heisman finalists. We have some awards later. I'm sure these names will come up in that situation. Heisman finalists were announced. The guys that will be in New York: Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Michael Penix. Is this all the 4 that we all kind of thought would be there? I don't think there's any surprises, are there?
Yeah, no, that's a good 4. I think maybe you make an argument. I would have liked to see it. Maybe it's my biased under the radar fandom talking, but I wouldn't have minded to see Ollie Gordon get an invite. I mean, he was a pretty dominant player on the stat sheet, and when it came to Oklahoma State's 9 wins, so I wouldn't have minded to see him get an invite. Obviously, it's going to be a situation where he would not win it, but not having that 5th player is kind of out of place for the Heisman, and he deserved it, but I thought it was a good 4.
Is it 4 because it's such a heavy favorite right now?
What do you mean?
Probably,
like, if it was such
I think Jaden Daniels is such a heavy favorite that they just didn't invite a 5th. I don't know.
I was going to say, haven't they only invited like 3 before, though? So if it was such a heavy
3,
favorite, wouldn't they invite 3?
3, 4, 5, all of them.
Like, I can't believe Harrison's in there, to be honest with you. Like, if anything, I'm surprised it's just not Penix, Nix, and Daniels. Especially with that, like, this award's like a quarterback award nowadays, anyways, for the majority of the years.
Award. It's a quarterback award. I don't think there's any argument there. And I think a lot of names that people thought might be there at the beginning of the year, like a Caleb Williams, maybe a Jordan Travis,
Drake May.
Yeah, Drake May, like names like that, they didn't have the best years, like 8-7 wins, things like that. And I think that's what kind of rattled this. So it's a little bit like I'm not that surprised at Penix and Nix, but I don't think they were the ones people thought.
Isn't it weird? Like, wasn't the conversation 2 weeks ago after the last regular season game of the year, like, does Daniels need one more game to kind of solidify his Heisman candidacy, or like is not playing in the conference championship going to hurt him? And I think as far as odds are concerned, it only helped him because I think he's like minus 1,000 now. I don't remember him being
was the favorite, but then he lost the Pac-12 championship, and now Daniels is the favorite.
It's
even if Nix won it, I don't think it would have mattered. I think Jayden Daniels had a better year. Like, not to get into like
he does, but I'm saying going into that Pac-12 game, Nix was the favorite and Daniels was second. Yeah. Now with him losing that game, now it's Daniels.
It's just it's crazy how much they flipped.
At least Bo Nix and Oregon's big campaign, they started in July and August, like all the ads they threw everywhere and billboards. At least they got him to New York, right? I mean, that's half the battle. That brand got him a long ways. Hey, he deserves to be there. I'm not going to say he doesn't, but I do think there's a clear and obvious winner here. We were just talking about the portal and names that are in it. Park's talking about McCord. There are some massive names now in the portal, opened yesterday. I'm just going to rattle some off. I mean, this is a pretty long list, but these are all names that are ranked very high within the 24/7 transfer portal rankings, as well as just name brand guys, right? Let's start at the top. We talked about Kyle McCord leaving Ohio State. He's now in the portal. Dillon Gabriel leaving Oklahoma. Riley Leonard leaving Duke. I'm pretty sure we all know where Riley Leonard's going based on Instagram activity.
Yep.
Followed like 20 guys from Notre Dame. Hey, good for you, man. Cam Ward, Brock Vandagriff, Juice Wells, a South Carolina receiver that I think is going to be one of the bigger names within the portal if you could go get him. Julian Fleming, Will Shepherd, and London Humphreys, both Vandy receivers, both ranked very high in those 24/7 rankings I was just talking about. Aiden Childs, a former 4-star recruit, played backup to Uiagalelei last year at Oregon State. Rumor is that he will be following Jonathan Smith to Michigan State to play quarterback for him in East Lansing. I lost my spot here. Walter Nolan was formerly the number 1 player in the 22 class at Texas A&M. Absolute monster on the interior defensive line. Dante Moore and Daquan Finn. I think that is just the start of people that'll probably go into the portal. But to just hear those names, you have the best quarterback in the MAC that's been a stud for the last couple of years. You have the former number 1 overall recruit in the 22 class. You have Ohio State's quarterback, Oklahoma's quarterback, Duke's quarterback, Cam Ward at Washington State. You have a former 4-star guy who is fairly highly rated again going into the portal, in Aiden Childs. It is insane to watch this. It's hard to not be on Twitter or on X, whatever the hell it's called, and just refreshing, right? Or trying to figure out anything you can about where these guys are visiting, where these guys are looking, what your team is doing in the portal. It's madness. And plus, you got guys declaring for the draft. You got guys opting out of the bowl game to go to the draft. There's a lot going on, and none of it is football games right now. I don't know how you guys feel each and every day. I feel like it's a new adventure just to see what happens out there in the world.
It's made me enjoy recruiting a lot more. I mean, I guess if you would classify this as recruiting, right? Like not just like going and picking high schoolers. Like this is a part of recruiting now that I never used to be huge on recruiting. It's hard to get into it sometimes. And sometimes, especially at a school like, for instance, Iowa State, I find recruiting very hard to make or break a class more than so development wise. But following the transfer portal is a lot of fun for me because like we know what guys have really proven it. I mean, there's some former 4 and 5 stars that really haven't seen the field at their old school. And that makes it a little more interesting that maybe they just needed another school to break out. But like you look at, the big name stars, Cam Ward, Kyle McCord, Dillon Gabriel, Riley Leonard. These are guys that have been around in college football for a really long time. So to see them have a new face, some of them being their third face, it's just going to be really interesting to follow. I kind of see it as, I don't want to bring up the NBA twice in a podcast, but it reminds me of NBA free agency, how crazy it really is now. Like during the offseason, just like half the entertainment in the sports following where these guys are going.
Not only that, but I feel like it hurts high school recruiting fun. I will be like a little bit of devil's advocate. I was always a guy that was into high school recruiting. Now it kind of takes away from it because there's no saying that you get a big high school recruit 4 or 5-star. If he doesn't make an immediate impact, see ya. Right. So it's almost becomes more important. And we've had this conversation 1,000 times that the transfer portal is as important as high school recruiting, if not more. So it's a win-lose for fandom, I think, but it's fun to see big names for sure.
Reese, you can just talk. You don't have to raise your hand.
Well, I wasn't sure if you were going to say something. I'll just say, I'm sure we've all seen that quote by Nick Saban, though, where it's like when he talks about when NFL scouts are calling him about his guys or whatever. And they all ask him, is like, nobody asks about how much did he play as a freshman. It's like, what kind of player did he turn into? And I feel like we're losing that aspect of it, where a guy can go somewhere and if he doesn't play, yeah, that sucks. But guess what, dude? You can learn it. If you're going to play underneath a guy who is Caleb Williams or who is Dylan Gabriel or somebody or Cam Ward, whoever it is, if you play under them, you can learn a lot from those guys. Like, they're big names for a big reason. Like, you can learn a lot from them. If you got to stick around there and just bust your ass to earn something, I think it just says a lot about some kids. But again, with the world that is now, you can go get a bag somewhere else if you transfer out and do things like that. So I think we're kind of losing that aspect of it too. It's like if the kid doesn't get a play right away, he's like, where can I go somewhere where I can play? And it's like, I think you lose some of that grind about it if it's like you just stay somewhere and you work with your coaches and your friends and other teammates and just get better that way too.
Yeah, and there's always like the situation on like the good side of it, right? Is kids who are playing FCS football or playing low-level college football, like in the MAC or somewhere, and they have a chance, they develop quick once they get into college, right? They get a new strength and conditioning routine, they get a meal, whatnot, or meal deal, and they just blossom late, and then they get the chance to go play Power 5 football. That's really cool. Think of Jared Verse when he was at Albany, right? And he was such a big name coming to the portal, goes to Florida State. Now he's a brand name, household name. There's going to be guys that get that chance again, and it should be very interesting to watch. And it's fun to watch those guys succeed, as I would say. Let's talk the final college football rankings. We'll just touch on the top 6 here, as that was the discussion. And I'm sure everybody's heard this like 65,000 times on every show, every podcast, every show, every radio show, every TV network. But we had a clip that we really liked and we put out last week with Reese talking about how there is just not really a situation or a way that Florida State should be left out of this. And then we get closer and closer and we're like, will they though? Like, are they, are they going to put Alabama in? We just kind of kept inching towards it. It felt like, and it just felt like more and more of a reality. And then they get announced and it's kind of like, oh shit, they really did it. They really did it. Reese, your initial reactions to that, because you were the one, I mean, we were all adamant that we thought Florida State deserved to be in with a way, no matter what. You're the one that wanted to talk about the rankings. You had the clip last week. How you feeling now, and how did you feel in the moment when they announced that?
I was shocked. I really didn't think they were going to do it. Like when I texted the group chat, I said, and then Schaefer's like, oh my God, they actually did it. I really didn't see him doing it. Like 3 different dominoes had to fall for it to happen. And usually you see the playoffs kind of sort itself out and they haven't had to make a tough decision like this. It's still just wrong to me, man. It's like, yes, he's a very important guy and they have it written down in the stipulations. And if you want to talk about the TCU game last year with the national championship game, well, guess what? TCU still went out and performed and beat Michigan. Like, you can go put them in that state. You don't know who the hell Florida State, what that team's going to be like. They found, like, going out and winning with your 3rd-string quarterback, that's pretty impressive, dude. Like, not many teams in this country can go out and do that and win the way they did. Just completely changing up your play style, more defense. You go beat a Louisville team who's top 15. They had a quarterback. They have probably one of the best coaches of the year, like, completely turned that program around. And you make a team 13-0. Like, it's just wrong to leave them out. 2 things can be correct at the same time. Like, it's wrong that they got left out, and you think it's right too, but at the same time, if you're going to leave out, if you think these are the 4 best teams, Georgia, I think, is still better than some of these teams up there too. So like, they're just put in a lose-lose situation. But I just don't think there's any situation where Florida State should have got left out.
Parks, you knew it was going to be Alabama at 4 when Texas was at 3, right?
100%. There was no option otherwise. I mean, this committee going against the SEC entirely is impossible. You knew exactly what was going to happen. Once they announced that Texas was in, Florida State's out, especially when they put Georgia at 6. there's no shot. They're going to leave out Alabama.
Yeah.
And especially when they put the Texas at 3. I mean, they're telling you all you need to know right there. Why wouldn't the undefeated team be at 3 over the 1-loss team? So they tipped their hand, and Kirk Herbstreit tipped the hand earlier. He had the 4 teams to put right behind him on his mantle. I don't know if you guys saw that, but Kirk tipped it.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one. That was hilarious.
Gross.
Just another awesome ESPN
that, right?
production.
It's made for TV, like that whole thing. Like the reveal, it should be, it plays into the hand of everything, and then in this situation, it really, showed through. Where in years past, it felt like we kind of knew who would be in, maybe not what number they would be, but we knew the 4 that'd be in. This being the 1 year that we weren't really sure. I mean, there was a lot of speculation, and we were kind of stunned to see it all happen too. When you look at that whole thing, we've had this discussion. I think we had this discussion Saturday morning, correct? We had the discussion in our text chain about the 12-team playoff and what differences. This is post Pac-12 title game. This is before all the kickoffs of all the title games on Saturday. What were you thinking when we talked about the 12-team playoff? So basically what the discussion and debate point becomes, what does the 12-team playoff bring that the 14 playoff does not? And what are your thoughts on it? This is debate time because we got into it on the text chain. So let's do it here now too. Reese, you start.
You want me to go first? All right. So we're so dug in on these beliefs that it is what it is. But like right now, again, this year is an outlier. I understand that. But if you have this next year, because right now we have our top 6, we're still leaving out Ohio State. We're still leaving out Oregon. And you're even leaving out a Missouri team who also went to Athens and only lost by 9 to Georgia, who's in their conference championship. Like, there's still 9 very legit teams I think could have a shot to win this thing. Granted, I know this year is an outlier, but who's to say that this can't happen next year? We're like, this is the first year it's ever happened. Well, shit, we never thought this was going to happen this year. What do we know about next year or the year after that? Like, we don't know what's going to happen with this landscape. Things can change with the portal, coaches going different spots. I just think, and also, if you're a team on the outside looking in, or if you're a team who can get to be a 9 or a 10 or an 8 or whatever, if you can go to an opposing team's field, so say like Missouri's going to Eugene or whatever, like you can go there. That's a home playoff football game. Like that will be a ton of fun for that fan base. And then it's just a great challenge for that team going on the road too. If you can go win that game, that's a damn good win too. And that's just like where your program is at going forward. I think kind of Shaver talked about at the beginning of the year or whatever. Like if Iowa State or whatever would make it as a 12 or 11, like it doesn't kind of feel the same as when it was the 14. I get that 100%, but that's like getting your foot in the door where like now guys that are the 3 stars and 4 stars that are at different schools, maybe they want to think about coming to Iowa State. You got coaches that are looking to want to come there. You can hire more people. You might get more funding, stuff going on like that. So I think it's an opportunity for other schools to get their foot in the door and for it to happen, and they can become a bigger part of college football than I think we're giving credit for.
I want to start it off first by saying, especially going off of this year and the debate for Florida State has been over the last week to how the 12 team will fix all of this. I want to just first off by saying that the 12 team, the college football has been, I don't know if corrupt's the right word, but college football has been a mess in the way they crown champions since
the beginning
60s.
Of time.
Yeah. So like we started with guys who write newspapers, just basically watch 6 bowl games and picked a national champion there. Then we had basically a computer picking our national champion. And then we went to this 4-team playoff that now everybody says that we just can't get it right because we just have guys sitting in suits watching football games all day and they can just pick and choose who they want to put in this 4-team playoff. So to say that 12 teams is going to fix all of that, I argue it won't, because I think you still have the same guys in charge. Now, that being said, I think your odds will be a lot less to get a Florida State where a team that maybe should be in won't be in now. Because to be honest, if you're going to be arguing for the 14th, 15th ranked team in the country to get in a 12-team playoff, I don't think you deserve to be in that conversation anyways. So hopefully the 12 team.
Unless we are arguing about it because one of those spots goes to a G5. And if you want Liberty in your playoff, I am sadly mistaken. That is the worst G5 team we've had in years. Get into your sixth bid.
I think and this is another thing too, because of how big the SEC is and how big money talks and television ratings talk. I mean, we might throw Liberty in for the next 2 years of this 12 team, but if you think the G5 is just going to make it every year as an automatic qualifier or an automatic bid for the rest of the time, I just think you're wrong. I think that the SEC is going to start arguing for multiple bids. These leagues are going to try to get to 16, 18, 20 teams and say, hey, look, we got 20, 22 teams in our league now. We can't just get one. We don't deserve one. Hey, we have Alabama and Georgia and Tennessee and LSU in this conference. How are we not putting 3 of those guys in? So I just see that argument coming down the road. But I mean, really, like the biggest argument for me and why I love the 4-team playoff, especially, is just because you look at the last 2 weeks and the awesome games and how much pressure that we've had in these last 2 weeks. I really hope the games still matter when we go to a 12 team. And I really hope conference championships still matter. I really hope rivalry weekend still matters. Like who's to argue? So Georgia, I mean, you're out. They lost this weekend. They're getting a 12 team easily. Like how big did that SEC championship game feel on Saturday? That felt bigger than life. Like, hey, I really do think that was like probably the national champion. I love Georgia. And that game just felt massive to me. Ohio State, Michigan 2 weeks ago. How huge was that game? If Jalen Milroe doesn't complete a 4th and 30, I mean, they say they don't get it. Auburn wins. They go the next week. They win the SEC title. They're probably still in next year. I mean, especially if we're going to automatic qualifiers. So that's just my biggest worry, especially with the 12 team, is the games are going to matter less.
We're going to have to battle that part of the conference title. I think the conference title is a different discussion because you're adding this many games on these kids. Well, you're adding this many games on these kids, right? And then you're just like, well, we'll play conference titles too. Like that's a lot of football for these kids in college, by the way, mind you. And this is now, if you add 3 more games for these kids, you're now playing, I would assume, this weekend, right? Like right after, or would you wait a week and then you'd go the next week and then probably a little bit of a wait for the next one? But it's piling up. My whole thing was like, are we wanting to play off this 12 team, right? Are people excited for it because there's more football games? Are we more excited because there's games on campus? Or do we think this is going to fix the power struggle at the top where it feels like there's 4 or 5 programs that have kind of run it, or 2 programs? Is that what we're thinking? Because if you're thinking 12-5 is going to happen all the time, I don't think that's true. And then are we talking numbers? Are we talking seeds, upsets? Are we talking, I'm looking right now at a number 11 Ole Miss and a number 7 Ohio State. If they're bidding teams seated or ranked above them, it's just the same brands that have been there, right? So are we worried about the brands winning football games? Like different brands starting to win college football games, a chance to win a national title? Or are we just talking the numbers, the upsets? That was my whole thing. It's like, what happens when number 8 Alabama goes to a semifinal and beats number 2 or number 3 Texas or something like that? How are the numbers fall? Are we still like, oh, well, you know, it's a good thing they got in, or people are going to be pissed that Alabama's winning football games again? You know, that's my whole thing.
I don't know if they'll be too upset. I don't know if they'll be too upset at that point, like about the seeds. I think they'll just be happy to see a good football game. Like if you're seeing Alabama versus Texas in the end of the year, like it's going to be a good.
But is it a good football game? Because 2 and 3 and 1 and 4 haven't been good games other than last year, and a couple random ones throughout the last 10 years. I think I shout out Chris Felica here. There have only been 4 total college football semifinal games with a spread of less than 5.5 or 6 points. 2 of them are this year.
It's a good year. I think it's honestly a good year for both sides to make the argument.
Oh yeah, it's a great.
To be honest,
and I would love,
we're leaving out some temes, but also like how big is the 4-team playoff been? You know, and
don't get me wrong,
making these games.
I love the idea of it. I'm going to have just as much fun with it next year. 100%. But I think people want it for the wrong reasons, and they're not going to get the thing they expect. Parks, you keep raising your hand. Jump in. It's a debate. We're going. This isn't a courtroom. Just go.
Yeah, we're missing the biggest piece here, man. We have to realize that we are not like the rest. There is a gigantic chunk of college football fans that check out in November. If their team is 4 wins, 5 wins, and they have no shot at a conference title, they're checked out. This eliminates that. You want to know why the NFL builds over time, how they can stay so big over 18 weeks? It's because teams that are 3-loss, 4-loss teams are still making a push towards the biggest game. This is going to retain those fans longer. And yes, the final score may not reflect a good game always. Alabama, Texas, it may end up by a 20-point game. But that first half, the ads, the buildup, the hype, the pregame shows, you're never going to match that. They'll never match that. That's why they did this. They did this to make the money. They're going to attract new fans that are going to stay engaged longer because their teams have chances throughout the year, even if they lose 1 or 2 games. But it hurts us as deep college football fans who expect, you have to be near perfect to win the college football national title. You have to be near perfect to even get a chance at it in this 4. This is kind of eliminating that. So it hurts us because we're college football fans through and through that don't lose attention in November. Most people aren't.
Okay, but I would argue to that point, if you're a college football fan that's losing interest because you can't win a title and just being ranked within the top 15 or top 20 with a chance to get into the 12-team playoff, if your team is you can be out of the conference race and ranked within the top 20. I mean, that happens every year. So, like, if those people are ditching out because they can't win a conference title,
they can't. But not winning a conference title is more plausible to still have a chance at the national title now, though. You don't have to win your division in the NFL to win the Super Bowl.
And I think to your argument, Parks, I think there's like 15 to 20 teams, and that might be too much in college football, where I think you can kind of put in that category, like maybe an Ohio State loses 2 games before the end of November and they're checked out because they're not going to qualify for a national championship. Whereas myself being an Iowa State fan, I would hope there's probably a 60 to 80 teams out there that are fighting for 6 to 7, 8 wins in November. And all of those games matter because, like, a program like Iowa State, national championships are just, it's not a realistic thing. And winning bowl games or getting to a bowl game or competing for a conference championship or division or whatever it may be, that's what matters the most to, I think, 70% of college football teams. And then the other probably 15 to 20%. God, that might even be too much. Or thinking about national championships every year. And it all kind of comes back to, like, with this 12-team playoff is, what about the Iowa States, the Kansases, the Indianas, the Wake Forest, Syracuse, where, like, now we have this 12-team playoff. What's going to happen to these bowl games? Like, what are the rest of these 60%, 70% of these teams fighting for? Because the bowl games are going to change next year. I would have to imagine the schedule is going to change. Are we going to lose more bowl games? Like, what about the rest of these teams that, and maybe this will help Iowa State in the modern day to actually compete with the big boys. But right now, I don't see it as like that being an option. I'm looking at it as like, if we don't consistently win 7, 8, 9 games in this new league every year, like, there's going to be a few teams that were big names back in the day that could fall off.
There's no reason at this point that I still really love bowl season, because I love bowl season because, again, Parks, you made this point earlier, because we watch college football, all levels of it, every conference. To those smaller schools, those bowl games are a big deal still. Fuck, for Iowa, right? Like, they're going to play in a bowl game against Tennessee who went 7-5. I'm going to watch the shit out of it, because I look at it as we have a chance to measure up where we were in the country, whether or not we have all of our guys. We have a chance to look into next year, what we're going to be able to do. I mean, if you are the G5 right now, why are you not kind of looking at this being like, why do we not have a playoff? Why can't we put 8 teams together, right? Or, there's 5 conferences. Your conference title, 3 at-larges. Let's go right into it. There's still bowl games that can sponsor those. You probably won't do as many on campus, but you'll do the bowl game version of it. But I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at on the whole thing. I still think the bowl games matter, but people who snubbed or told you that all these bowl games now with the 14 playoff don't matter anymore. They added 1 or 2 more freaking games to a national title thing, and they told you the other 40 bowl games didn't matter anymore. Horseshit, malarkey. But that's what the networks told you. That's what the talking heads told you. That's what the casual fan told you. What are they going to tell you next year? They're going to tell you, I don't care. Okay. You know what I mean?
I think that's at the end of this for all of this. I mean, my biggest worry for the 12-team playoff and just sports in general, honestly, with how much of a product it is on TV nowadays and in anything, is just the complacency of like the fan base, the talking TV heads, the commissioners. Like everything's just a money grab. And my biggest worry is I hope you two are right, Reese and Parks. I hope this is the greatest product ever. I hope this is a lot of fun. But like, I don't see the 12 teams solving issues 10 years down the road. When is 16 going to be enough? When is 30 teams in a conference going to be? It's just never enough ever. Like we always try to transition into new things, but it's just none of it's ever enough.
My one last final point that I would say is you're seeing right now guys that are already opting out of playing in their bowl games. And a lot of these are big names that could be playing in a playoff right now. Like you're seeing Kyle McCord, Dylan Gabriel, Riley Leonard's obviously not in there, but if Duke had a little bit better luck, some of these other guys like that are opting out of these bowl games and looking at the portal right away could be sticking around with these programs just a little bit longer too. Like I think that's something to think about as well.
I think they'll be I think there'll be opt-outs in semifinal games or quarterfinal games at some point. I don't know when it'll be, but I think at some point you'll get a couple. That's just my thought. I don't know. Because they're like, why would I play more games now? Like the NFL's there. You know, I don't know. That's just what I think. I hope I'm wrong.
Because NAL's there.
That would be, yeah. Also, they're going to make them play the games. Put it in the little bylaws of this NIL contract. But hey, great discussion, because I think that's something everybody has that discussion with their buddies and family and different things like that. So it's really nice to kind of listen to everybody talk about their point of view on it. And you get a billion different point of views on a 12-team playoff versus the 4. Let's jump into the Play the Fight Song season awards. This is something that Reese kind of had an idea a couple weeks ago. We were trying to find a good week to do it. How about the week before Army Navy? Let's jump into these. Our first award here, this is how we're going to do it. I think we'll each say our nominee, a little short snippet about it. And then do we want to pick one, or do we just all want to have a different one?
I think we vote on one as a podcast. I think we vote on one. We each give a vote, and then we vote on one as a podcast.
Yeah. So we all have a nomination.
Yeah.
Let's see our nomination.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Perfect. Parks, you're in the top left of my screen. I don't know if you are like that for everybody.
Same for me.
But most surprising team of 2023 to Camden Parks is who?
Texas. And it may be a shock because we are very high on them.
No, he's good. Hey, yeah.
It's
your
fun.
nomination.
Okay. Yeah, okay. It's Texas. I was very high on them. But this team has been talented for many years and has never panned out. So, was my expectation high? Sure. Did they finally fulfill? Yes. Did it shock me because in the past they haven't fulfilled that surprising need to make the college football playoff with the talent they had? Yes. So, Texas shocked me, actually finished the season, got a little lucky with Oklahoma State getting that draw, not having to play the rematch. But Texas surprised me in actually finishing a season where they were supposed to be. So I'm going to give it to Texas.
Here's to they. Hopefully they finish it out and cash a future for me. Reese, your nominee for 2023 surprising team is?
I'm going to go with Arizona. This is a team that I had no clue what they were really going to be like this year. And then, I mean, they had Jaden DeLora, and then they went with Fita Fey, who is pretty damn good. You're with Jed Fish and his.
What was that name?
Is it Fita Fey? How do you say it?
Noah Fafita.
Fafita.
No, Fafita. My bad. Why was I saying Fita Fey? I have no idea. Tina Fey.
Tina Fey.
Either way, and then Jed Fish in his second year. I mean, improving. And their 3 losses this year. They're only lost by 1 score in each of those games. I mean, you lose on the road to Mississippi State early in the year. You lose by 2 to USC in overtime, and you lose to Washington by a touchdown. I mean, those are 3 pretty impressive losses for a team that I sure didn't have any expectations for this year. Schaefer was big on them, but I did not think they were going to be anything like this, especially finishing 3rd in the conference. So my nominations for Arizona.
I'm going to say I had Arizona as my nomination for the sake of 4 nominees. I think it would look better. I'll go. Actually, you know what? You go, Schaefer. I don't want to take yours because if I say yours, don't okay,
take
go
mine.
ahead. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
hope you have multiple options. I feel like you're going to. I'm going to go Missouri.
Yeah, that's the one I would have taken.
That was one of mine too.
Yeah. I think this team's win total was, I think it was 6.5. Even if they would have gotten 8 wins, I think that would have been surprising. But their only 2 losses came to Georgia and probably the Heisman Trophy winner and Jaden Daniels and LSU. Just the way Eli Drinkwitz has gotten over the hump this year. I mean, it kind of all stems from that Kansas State game, where Mevis makes the 55-yarder and they kind of. Was it 61? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
it's 61. I had money on Kansas State. Yeah, I remember it.
and they kind of take off from there. And the offense was one of the more prolific offenses in college football. Luther Burden, Theo Weiss, they were just electric. And Cody Schrader's became one of the more under the radar names in college football. So yeah, I'm excited for this team to play Ohio State in bowl season, and that's my surprising team of the year.
Again, for just the sake of the nomination, I'll give the Northwestern. I'll give.
Yeah, that's literally mine too.
Yeah, everything that program went through, everything that happened there, then they go out and they go bowl eligible to be 7-5, and that team's going to be pumped to play in their bowl game. So don't tell them it don't matter to them. So our nominations: Arizona, Texas, Northwestern, and Missouri. My votes for Arizona because that's the first one I had written down. Reese,
give my vote to Arizona.
Okay, I'll vote Arizona too.
3 votes. Arizona.
I mean, my vote doesn't matter, but if I had to go one, I mean, I thought Northwestern was going to win one football game. Literally one football game.
I was going to say, I got to say, remember that bet we had at the beginning of the year? I think JP asked about, like, if you were given plus 100 odds for Northwestern to win one Big Ten football game, none of us were like, yeah, take it, easy money. We were all like,
and they won a lot.
They won 5 of them.
Hey, congratulations to Arizona to play the fight song 2023 most surprising team. Hopefully there's more to come for that team and they'll have a real chance to win the Big 12 next year if things continue to go up. Let's flip the script though. How about the most disappointing team in 2023? Parks, you let us off last time. How about again your nomination?
I mean, everybody's gonna not bat an eye at this one, right? USC. USC, what a crumble. Right. I mean, with the weapons they had on the offense side of the ball for the defense to be so abysmal that it completely ruins their season. It's just about the most disappointing you can look at. I mean, you have a returning Heisman quarterback, a freshman like Zachariah Branch, and you win 7 games. Okay. You want to talk about disappointing? You talk USC this year.
Reese, your nomination.
I'm going to go with the one they still had a successful winning record, but I think with kind of how they started off the year off pretty hot, I kind of got a little higher on them. I think people did too, but I went with the Fighting Irish. They still went 9-3, but they started the year on fire. I mean, they beat like Navy and like Middle Tennessee State or something like that. But they also went and handled a North Carolina State team. Then you lose by 3 at home to an Ohio State team where you had 10 men on the field. And I thought they were going to be it. I thought they were like, we kind of talk about them being a sneaky team at the end of the year to maybe be in the playoff. I mean, you picked up probably the best quarterback in the portal in Sam Hartman. Audric Estime was a hell of a guy. And you also had Joe Alt, who was one of the best tackles in the country, one of the best lines in the country. Still had an all right year, but I think kind of for their expectation, I think they kind of had a disappointing season.
Schaefer, your nomination for this category.
First of all, I want to give an honorable mention to 2 disappointing players. I want to throw Phil Dracovic and Brennan Armstrong in that category.
Dang.
Especially Armstrong. I'm sorry, bro. I don't mean to throw you under the bus, but you're probably not going to hear this anyways. I mean, you want to talk about transfer portal quarterbacks. That was it was tough sledding for those guys this year.
Speaking of which, into that mix if we wanted to.
Yeah, well, at least they won 7 games or whatever it was. That was a little better. Okay, my disappointing team, we'll stick with the conference I know the best, is probably the Big 12, and that being the Baylor Bears, a team that went 3-9. This was a dark horse team, at least for me. I could probably put this in my worst takes that we're going to get to later on in the episode. Just completely off on this team. They go in the portal and get Dominic Richardson from Oklahoma State. That was a huge get. They had Chapin coming back, and they they lose to Texas State at home to give Texas State its first Power 5 win in its program history, and it just never recovered from there. Losses to Houston, they lost to West Virginia, they got blown out to Kansas State and TCU back-to-back weeks. It was a tough year to be a Baylor fan.
I'm going to go with Arkansas here. I think this is maybe not a national one. This is in Fayetteville. What the hell happened, Sam? We need to figure this out now. 1-7 in SEC, playing 4-8 overall with KJ Jefferson, with Rocket Sanders. I know they were banged up throughout the year, and we thought they got the right portal guys to help the defense out. They got more weapons. Nope, it actually got worse, right? So I put Arkansas down for my most disappointing team of 2023. My vote, though, I'll just start with my vote, is USC.
I was going to go there as well.
Yeah, I'll stick with that train. I can stick with that.
Reese, what was your nomination again? I want to make sure I had that right.
I had Notre Dame. I forgot honorable mention before surprising teams, but at West Virginia was a team I thought that could have been surprising.
I think they could have been in there as well.
I think JP, I'll make a wicked graphic for these two. So just make sure you send me those nominations.
Yep, just write them all down so we have them all. Coach of the year, I think there's a real possibility that we overlap in this situation with most surprising teams. But our coach of the year for 2023 is, I think this is one we can all vote on and be happy with, but everybody in this category deserves the award. Parks, again, lead us off. Your coach of the year in 2023 is who?
Yeah, I got to take a page out of your book, JP. Give me David Braun at Northwestern. With the situation he took over and the talent that he had on that roster that won one game last year to get bowl eligible in the midst of losing long time head coach that had about as high as an image at a school that you can achieve. And maybe it's a credit to Northwestern's players being smart and not just being the University of Northwestern where you have to be a genius to get in. But man, they handle it in stride, and you can't do that without good coaching. So you got to give credit where credit's due. Give me the Big Ten actual coach of the year, David Braun.
Yeah, I like that one. Reese, to you for your nomination.
I went with the one undefeated coach that we got because the other one's a cheater. But I went with Kalen DeBoer, 13-0 for the Washington Huskies.
Schaefer, same. I had the same. Don't worry.
And I figured that was going to happen, but
I think that was a pot.
I went that one.
What if I had my 1A and 1B both gone with Parks and Reese going in a row? So
I bet I can think of who you guys are going to think of next too. I bet I have.
Well, Schaefer,
duel is okay.
Possible third option. Your possible third option
to the best coach I've ever seen out of 6 games this year. Give me Jim Harbaugh. I'm just playing.
I will stop.
Coach, the best 6 games I've ever seen. Well, I'll go chalk here then too. I'll go Mike Norvell. Like, to get left out of the playoff is just crazy for the job that he did this year. Adding the transfer guys that he did, getting his team through the finish line, 13-0. Hopefully he gets the credit. I think DeBoer will actually win National Coach of the Year, but hopefully Norvell gets a little bit of that credit as well.
Yeah, I'm going to go Dave Doeren here. How about that nomination? An NC State team that you really weren't sure where they'd go. How about 9 wins for the Pack, right? And they have the whole thing where Armstrong struggles. They bring in MJ Morris. Well, MJ Morris plays his 4 games. He goes, actually, I want a red shirt, and then I'll probably leave the next year. And then they still win a couple games to some big wins within there. I think that's one I kind of the same David Braun. Obviously, David Braun's much different situation and how dramatic it was, but a team you didn't really expect a ton out of, and they go out and win 9 games in the ACC. I'll take Dave Doeren there. Vote-wise, Schaefer, your vote goes where?
I'll go DeBoer since that was my first pick.
Reese, you gonna vote for yourself?
I would vote myself, but I'll vote Norvell.
I was gonna go. I originally wrote down David Braun. That was my first one I wrote down. So, like, are we all gonna vote for somebody else?
Because I would take Braun. I would take Braun with the situation.
So we got two for Braun, so Braun wins.
2-1 vote. David Braun.
2-1.
If Deion would have done this, people would have shit in their pants.
Oh.
What? 7
I'll tell
games?
you this much.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah,
it's fact. Some people actually still think he is coach of the year because they won 3 more games. It's a real thing. I don't know why he's not getting votes. That's just me. But hey, it's a player of the year. We've done the coach now. Our national player of the year doesn't need to be the Heisman, doesn't need to be a quarterback, doesn't need to be somebody that's in New York. Your vote for player of the year in this country and nomination from Parks is who?
Bo Nix. I'm sorry, it's basic, but he was so dominant all year, so clean. I mean, we've seen it in person, and JP and Schaefer and I have seen him in person. He is a sight to behold at that at quarterback. I mean, he was arguably better than Michael Penix in the Pac-12 title overall. They just couldn't get a stop. They didn't defend the run well, but Bo Nix was as advertised all year long. Bodacious was in full effect every game this year. So give me Bo Nix. I think he was probably the most pristine, polished player across the country.
Reese, your nomination for player of the year.
I'm not going to go with chalk right here. I'm going to go actually with Jalen Milroe just because I think of how much he actually meant to that team. When you look at them at the beginning of the year, when they really didn't know their identity and they were just kind of tying stuff around with Simpson and Buckner, and you go into USF and you struggle, and they realize that's not the thing, and then they went all in on him. The guy ended up having 2,700 yards, 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He ran for almost 500 yards and also had 12 touches on the ground. I think that guy meant the most to his team of the quarterbacks we've seen, because we saw what they were at the beginning of the year and they had to make adjustments and buy into something. I think it's Jalen Milroe.
Schaefer, sorry. Words.
First of all, had he not gotten hurt, to be completely honest with you, if we talk about meaning something to the team, I think Cooper DeJean probably could have been my player of the year just for how much he did for Iowa and arguably won them 2 games on a punt return. But with that being said, I'm going to go Ollie Gordon, not because it's just a Big 12 team. This guy quite literally saved Oklahoma State from going 3-9. He turned it around in the 150-yard game against Iowa State, even though they didn't get the win. But after that, he just went on a tear I don't think we've seen in college football in quite some time, especially at the running back position. He had I think it was 3 games over 225 yards this year. And Alan Bowman was okay, but Ollie Gordon was out of this world good and got him to a Big 12 title somehow. So that's my player of the year.
I definitely went chalk on mine, fellas, and it's probably not that cool to say, but it's Jayden Daniels. I mean, the guy ran for over 1,000 yards. He set up ridiculous numbers, better than Burrow's LSU offenses. It's literally not his fault they couldn't get a stop, or they would be playing for a national title if they had an average defense. That team is really good. He's a really good quarterback. I was high on him when he was at Arizona State before the transfer to LSU. I'm going Jayden Daniels here. My vote, though, I kind of did like I like the Ollie Gordon one because
I'll take an Ollie Gordon. Yeah. Ollie Gordon.
Thanks, fellas.
I think that's a good one. I think that's a good one to have because
100%.
Congratulations, Ollie.
How quick their season changed when he got rolling, right? And I think Milroe's another good one for that situation. Is just once he kind of figured his things out, they started rolling as well. So both of those would have been my top 2. Me and Parks pick guys that are going to be in New York, being very unique, right? Now, here's one that I think this will be interesting to see what people came up with. Undervalued player of the year, a guy who maybe doesn't your brand or household name, but he's super talented. He doesn't get all the love he deserves, but we're going to try and do that here and outline that. The most undervalued player in this country, your nomination, Parks, is who?
Yeah, and this may only be because he's in the same side of the ball as most likely our Heisman Trophy winner, but Malik Neighbors, stats that jump off the page at wide receiver. LSU wide receiver had 86 catches, over 1,500 yards, and 14 touchdowns. So if you want to talk a guy that maybe wasn't on the cover because he's in the same backfield as Jayden Daniels, what a name that jumps out. Malik Neighbors was an absolute monster this year for them.
Reese, your nomination.
I'm going to go with Travis Hunter. Guy played over 130 snaps on both sides of the ball one game. Look at Parks. I got you, buddy. Calm down, dude. Goodness.
Hey, it's crazy that he's undervalued. You would have thought he would have won the Heisman in week 3.
He's not a household name. He literally had his liver lacerated. A guy who got laid out,
He is a household name. Don't tell me he's not. Are you kidding me?
I'm kidding.
Oh,
that's the joke. Why I said his name. Goodness gracious, kid, get along with it. My real pick, I went with Brady Cook.
You were actually kidding.
Yes, I was kidding.
I was legitimately pissed. I was legitimately pissed.
I know. That's why I said it. Got him. I went with Brady Cook. 3,100 yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Also ran for 8 touchdowns. I mean, Missouri finished in the top 10 for the first time, I think, in like 10 years or something like that. And they also if you look at all their wins, they handled the teams. They won all of them by double digits, except for the Kansas State one at the beginning of the year, which was a big kick by Memphis. But give me Brady Cook.
Schaefer, I'm interested to see where you
feel
go.
like I gotta. Yeah, I have to go on the defensive side of the ball just because there are names out there that people know, but I feel like just as an average fan or anything like that, it's hard to follow defensive players, especially. So I'm going to go the guy who's really led a team I feel like has carried them all the way to where they're at so far. Give me Dallas Turner at Alabama. Like as well as Milroe has played down the stretch, this is a world beater defense, if I'm being completely honest. This defense is just insane. He's got 50 total tackles this year. He's got 9 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. He's the best player on the best defense in the country, and I think that guy is an absolute difference maker. So he's very undervalued, at least to the college football eye.
It's a good thing you didn't go with the other one on your player of the year, Schaefer, because I went homerism here. I put undervalued as Cooper DeJean. I thought with how much they struggled, and then you saw immediately what happened when he was out, struggling with guys in the slot. You had Nebraska kind of tear him up in that position with athleticism, and you had just, as you went, you kind of saw where they were hurting. In the return game on the defensive side, locking down the best receivers, his ability to make tackles. So that's where I went undervalued player of the year, because I do think people know about him, but obviously we hear about him more being in the Midwest and being in Iowa or Iowa State and Nebraska playing Iowa. So that's where I went for my nomination. Reese, your vote goes to who though?
Tough one. I'll go with Mr. Neighbors. I'll go with Malik Neighbors.
Parks, your vote.
I don't mind your pick, JP, actually, because he does have probably the most impact a defensive player has ever had on an entire team. But Neighbors' stats are honestly comical.
That's 2 votes. Schaefer, are you going to Malik Neighbors?
Can we have a co-undervalued player of the year?
I was going to go to you, JP, but I'm going to disqualify him just because he got hurt. So I'm going to go with my own pick, just because I feel like we've got to honor some defensive guys on this podcast. So I'm going to go Dallas Turner.
Well, what happens if it's 2-2?
They're both on the graphic. We have a
co-undervalued player of the year.
Offense, defense.
Congratulations, guys. Do you think you're going to make it this far?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, got them both. They both. Malik Neighbors and Dallas Turner both undervalued players of the year. Now, remember when we talked about national champions and how it's kind of bullshit? People will like just pick one, and newspaper writers and media people, personnel. We're going to do that right now with the G5. Our G5 national champion. Your nomination, Reese, for your G5 national champion is who?
Well, it's tough because they lost, but I was going to go with the Wave.
Well, you're not actually going to nominate him, though, are you?
Yeah, you can.
What do you mean?
They were great.
They lost their conference title.
Yeah, but they went to the wire with Ole Miss. Come on, you can nominate them. They deserve a nomination.
I was going to give them the Wave. Come on, the Wave.
And make the G5 playoff.
All right. Parks, your nomination.
Troy, team I was high on in the preseason, wins the Sun Belt. Gunnar Watson, stud, runs through the Sun Belt, actually. Sorry, Jake. I actually didn't mind your App State pick, but give me Troy. People are going to tell you to put an asterisk next to it because JMU didn't have a chance. Don't listen to them. Troy's a wagon.
You might want to listen to them because you can put an asterisk on it for the team that beat Troy. Give me the James Madison Dukes. I think that this team lost a game where they didn't think they were going to be in a bowl game at that point in the season. Duke. I think they would have had a lot more to play for, especially at home on College game day, playing for that.
You can't give them that.
New Year's 6.
You cannot give them that. That they were out on that game. The College game day was there. They were not lost out on because they couldn't make a bowl game.
They lost in overtime. Mistakes happen. I think this team's beating Liberty if anybody does have them.
Liberty's not good.
Give me the Dukes. It's a sham they didn't get to host Troy at home for that conference title game.
Liberty.
Nobody picked mine. SMU.
Fair enough.
Is the best G5
team. Welcome.
They won the best G5 conference without their quarterback. If they had Preston Stone, this is the best G5 team in the country, I think.
If they had a G5 playoff, if it was those 4 teams, holy shit, I'd watch that. That's
oh my god, it'd be so much fun.
That'd be so
much
awesome.
Fun. See how we leave Liberty out when you have 133rd out of 100.
Are we the committee?
Toughest schedules.
Did we just pull a committee?
There's no way you
G5 committee
undefeated.
G5 playoff committee. Us.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like
Liberty's
that.
not. Liberty gets the bid to the New Year's 6, but not in our book. Not in our book. Anybody? What's our votes here? Where are we going here?
I'll go with
Dukes.
James Madison's fine. I agree. They were very good.
I was gonna go SMU. Their only losses to Oklahoma this year.
They lost to TCU as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm changing that. Not TCU.
But he picked against himself.
I was thinking they were
11. James Madison would call you the G5 national champion. Or do we want to give them 2 teams and say this would be the national champion?
Come on, Dukes.
We'll give them 2 teams. SMU, JMU, national title. I would like that.
That'd be sweet.
That's must-watch TV.
Sweet. Pay for it.
Hey, our 2023 Game of the Year nominations. Parks, Game of the Year, the favorite one to watch, when you go back and forever rewatch it when we think the 2023 season is what?
I mean, you got to go chalk here. Give me the game. Ohio State, Michigan lived up to the hype. Ohio State competed. Good atmosphere. Great football weather. I love that game's a noon kick. I love it. I don't know why. But give me the game. It lived up to all the hype. And it's always the most fun, especially because they're both good and they're in contention for the same spot.
Schaefer, you go.
Can I throw an honorable mention if mine doesn't get said after everybody goes?
Are you going to say Farmageddon?
I actually did consider that because that was a lot of fun, but no, it's not that one. I'll go Missouri, Kansas State. I think that was one that not everybody had a ton of eyes on, but man, that was a shootout. I think there was still some decent defense in there, and then it ended on arguably one of the plays of the year, just an absolute nuke of a kick.
Harrison Mevis.
Yeah, that was a bomb.
Yeah. Reese.
I don't know, man. It was tough to pick between Iowa, Nebraska, or Iowa, Iowa State, man. Those are just 2 barn burners of games. But I actually ended up going with
the Iowa Nebraska one. That's kind of fun.
That was a little funny. I actually ended up going with Ole Miss and LSU. I don't know if you remember the score of this game, but it was Ole Miss 55, LSU 49. Both teams had over 650 yards of offense. And if you liked watching offense, that was a game to watch.
Nobody took any of the ones I wrote down here. I wrote down just honorable mention why. My nomination here will be the Red River rivalry. That's my nomination. Honorable mentions. How about Florida State Clemson? If you remember how good that game was. Washington, Oregon, part 1 in Seattle, and then KU OU. That game was awesome. Just everything.
Do we forget? We forgot about Notre Dame, Ohio State. It was an uglier, low scoring game, but
but people love offense, Schaefer, don't you know?
I mean, you got to get one little slobber knocker in there.
How about Colorado TCU? I mean, that was week 1. We didn't know anything about anybody yet.
To be honest, Colorado State was
that
better.
was a damn good one too. That was a damn good one too. Better. I agree. Hey, my vote though, I think it's Red River. I'll vote for my own. I'll be that guy. I think that's game of the year.
I'm gonna go Red River too.
That was 1B on my list besides Missouri, Kansas State. So I'll tag along with you there.
Fine by me. I got beat.
Hey, sometimes
we took some fun ones. We took some fun ones out here.
Those are great games. Great games.
Hey, 2023 transfer of the year. This is a guy who did not play at this school in 2022. His transfer in 2023 was a massive, massive, massive deal to this team. Stood out. Nominees for this one, Schaefer, for you.
At least early in the year, I think Keon Coleman was just an absolute difference maker, especially when Jordan Travis was healthy and the offense was clicking. He was exactly what they needed in the portal to complement Johnny Wilson in Trey Benson and the entire offense. So he's definitely the one for me.
Reese, your nomination.
I would say Mr. Plummer down at Louisville. I mean, coming into the team, didn't really know what that team was going to be like this year. Rekindle with his old coach that he had, and they had a very successful year for their standards. We talked about how they had an easier schedule at the beginning of the year, but he still got to go out and win those ball games. He's a pretty good quarterback to do it for him. So I'll take Mr. Plummer down in Louisville.
Are you ready, Parks?
Yeah, no, I'm ready. I just wanted to make sure people go first so we can get two good established ones, because mine is kind of like Schaefer's, where it was very early in the year before he got injured. But I thought Andrell Anthony made a massive impact at Oklahoma, coming from Michigan. He was wide receiver one for them. Obviously, came down with an injury, and it kind of hurt them on the outside. But what an impact he made for Oklahoma when they were having success.
I have Cody Schrader at Missouri.
Ooh, that's the winner.
Here, fellas.
Comes into the SEC, runs for over 1,000 yards, deals with a Missouri team that didn't have the highest of expectations, gets second in the East with a couple of battles with some really good football teams. And you could argue
comes from D2. What a transfer.
Truman State. Mornings used to beat those guys.
Yeah, Cody Schrader reminded me that Ray Davis could be a good honorable mention.
Oh, he'd be a really good one too.
Yeah,
I agree.
Ray Davis.
That's the honorable mention, I think, Schaefer.
Sam Hartman.
Good catch there. Votes go where on this one? This is our final award.
I'm giving my vote to Schrader. I mean, you lead the SEC in rushing as a Division II transfer at a team that we just said was our most surprising team or one of our nominees. Then give me Schrader. What a great pick.
I'll go him too.
Perfect.
Got to show some Missouri love. We had him a lot nominated, never won a title. So
nobody even put Drinkwitz for Coach of the Year. Nobody nominated him.
Nope.
For being completely honest,
he's all-time jokester. All-time.
He is. He's all over the place now.
Oh my God.
He's talking about. He's like, there's one of those defensive ends that you guys were just talking about. Hint, and like kind of did that thing today, and then he was making the jokes about the Michigan cheating scandal. I mean, he's all over the place. He's having a great time. His job is no longer jeopardy.
Okay, did you hear him? Did you hear him earlier in the year where he said that he'd let Brady Cook sleep with his daughter?
No, he did.
Did you guys?
Yeah,
I didn't see that. What?
That. You gotta look it up.
Yeah,
he said something like that.
He said that if he had to pick a player to date his daughter and do whatever he wanted, that he would choose Brady Cook. That's how much he believes in him as a young man.
God.
That's a good relationship between your head coach and your quarterback right there.
Yeah. I mean, that's a literal connection.
That's rough. Hey, those are the awards for the 2023. We have all of our nominations. We'll put them on some graphics, send them out there for everybody to see. Very cool to kind of reflect on the season on those. And more than just your Heisman and Nagurski and Bednarik and all the Blitnikoff and all those awards. So those are the awards from the Play the Fight Song family. How about we go to like worst and best things we said for predictions on the year? Reese?
Oh, I said some dumb stuff.
Yeah. Hey, go ahead. Give us your best take and best prediction for the year, and then immediately go into your worst, because we can't put you on a high for too long. You got to bring it right back down to level.
Well, I still believe my best take. It hasn't been proven true yet because there's so many games we play. But at the beginning of the year, I said that the SEC was not going to have the national champion. I still believe that's true. I don't think Alabama's going to win this year. I think the other three teams, I think, have a good shot to beat them. So that's probably my best prediction I had. My secondary one was that I picked Iowa would win the West, but I'm going to stick with the SEC is not going to win the national champion is my best one. Could be proven wrong because I am stupid. I do say dumb things all the time. But probably the dumbest thing I said all year was I said Washington was going to go 8-4. Here they are 13-0 with the number 2 seed with a potential coach of the year. And then we also did the where we picked like if this unranked team can crack the top 10 at the end of the year. I said Pitt, and holy shit, was that wrong?
I don't know, man.
They did beat
that was a tough one. I look back, I'm like, ooh, that was a dumb one. And then another really stupid one I said was, I think it was like North Carolina. I forget who they beat like mid-season. But I was like, they should be the favorite to win the ACC. And then they quickly lost to Virginia, who just beat like William and Mary. And now North Carolina's just nothing this year. So there we go. Trifecta for you people. Just listen for the good stuff I give you.
Hey, it's fair. It's fair. Parks, you go next. Your best and worst from the year, man.
Yeah, I've got a few bad ones out there that I hope never see the light of day. I actually pay, as most of you know, we change streaming services. How much better it looks now, you're welcome, throughout halfway through the year. But I still pay $5 a month to have access to our old videos. So hopefully we can clip some of these and get them out to you in a very beautiful manner. But I'm going to start with my best. I predicted Georgia Tech to make a bowl game, and that's where they're at. Georgia Tech season's not over. I believed in Rambling Wreck from the start. Brent Key, I love you. You're welcome. Thanks for making me sound smart. So that'd probably be my best. Yes, that would be. I have to. And then my worst, it's a team that I've just picked apart all year long, stemmed from my hatred from them as a child that still stands tall. But I thought TCU was going to shit on Colorado. I mean, thought they were going to just dookie them, wipe them across the field. And it just didn't do good. It just that one didn't. I didn't predict that one on the nose. They lost. So that was probably my worst. Because if you go back and listen to what I said, that's on YouTube. I don't know ball.
To be fair, a lot of people believed you, and a lot of people were on that train. And I said I was there. I was like, I didn't even think TCU was gonna be great, but I was like, a little too early to jump on the Colorado train. We were proven wrong. Granted, close game, not a blowout, but still proving the wrong in the first couple of weeks. I'll go with mine here, and then we'll end with Schaefer's. My best prediction for the year, I had a couple that I thought were really solid. Both reside in the Pac-12. Washington to win the Pac-12. I was the lone guy that picked Washington to win the Pac-12. The rest of them were on Oregon. I was high on this Washington team throughout the year. I thought the SEC would send two, or the Big Ten would send two to the playoff, and the SEC would be so good that the Pac-12 wouldn't get in to the playoff with a one-loss team. Well, Washington goes undefeated, wins the Pac-12. I nailed that prediction. How about Sac State beating Stanford? I said that. Sac State's head coach took the job at Stanford. This is his first year at Stanford. They immediately play Sac State. They beat them on the farm. That's a good one. You know what's a bad one, though? Not a single one of the four teams I picked to be in the playoff the preseason being in the playoff. Not one. I had Penn State, Georgia, Ohio State, LSU, and not one of them. And I also said Mizzou was a long shot to win the SEC or to be very good. That turned out wrong.
Hey, you win some, you lose some, man.
Schaefer.
Okay. I want to throw two honorable mentions for best and worst of the year because they're both social media related. Best being a prediction for Iowa State. I put on our Reddit boards. I put a score prediction of the Baylor game. I think I put 30-18, and the score ended up being 31-18. Now I might be murdering.
Hey, there you go. That's pretty darn good.
I was a single point off of the actual score prediction in that game when I posted that. So, worst prediction, one that is blowing up our TikTok page right now, is I made a record prediction as one does in the old offseason on our TikTok page about Kentucky and how their record would be this year. It wasn't completely far off. I think I had them like 9-3. God forbid they were 7-5 and they lost to Missouri and Tennessee. I didn't have right. But boy, shout out to my boy. Let's go, Tim. Tim Inman. When he said my credibility was out the door when I picked the Wildcats to beat Tennessee, that was back in August. Good for you, Tim. We don't know shit on this podcast. We were wrong. God forbid I thought Devin Leary would show up this year. Although my boy Miles with a black heart on there, Miles said Louisville is beating Kentucky. Stop hyping UK up. Well, Miles, sorry to tell you, Jack Plummer's not that good. Ray Davis ran all over you, so we had to get you back with one there because we did have Kentucky beating Louisville. So I had to blow that one up. It's gotten like 10,000 more views in the past 2 days. So it's just
very random. Nation is pissed.
Perfect.
My actual best and worst predictions, I had like Arizona and Wyoming's win total over. Pretty bland, but Arizona was nice to see. Even though it was all Jaden DeLora based, I thought he was going to play better this year. No, I guess he just needed to be benched. So maybe that's a worst take. I don't know. Maybe that's a worst take. I had Michigan winning the Big Ten. I think that was a pretty good one, especially when how tight of a race it was this year between Ohio State and Penn State. So to pick the right one on that side felt pretty good. My worst takes, Kansas State and Texas Tech in the Big 12 title. Yeah, I don't think it could have been worse.
No, it could have been worse. It could have been worse. Say the next
one.
Just
a bit outside.
The next one, Schaefer.
Well, I think this one's worse than the next. Okay, fine.
This one's
the next one
bad.
I had. We had to pick a top 10 team that was going to finish out of the top 25 by the end of the year. My prediction was Washington. I don't feel like it's that they were in a lot of close games at the end of the year.
Sure, you couldn't have gotten farther. You're one stop from the number one overall
way. Hey, they could have gone either way.
No, did you hear this? The games could have gone either way, guys. I wasn't that far off. They were only 13-0.
Granted, he's not wrong. They didn't score an offensive touchdown against Arizona State. Like they're very close to being a team that could have been underperforming.
But they weren't. TCU,
and they weren't that close.
Look at TCU winning all the close games last year. Look at them this year. Maybe we see a similar thing with Washington. Maybe I was just a year off.
No. I think you were a year behind. They did that last year when they struggled to win some football games late. Those are what?
One quick point. If we're giving ourselves credit for predicting games, please, put my Iowa Nebraska one in the lure.
But everyone saw that one coming.
I said, watch the end of my preview. I said we are going to throw an interception. We'll turn it over, setting up the game-winning field goal. Do you know what fucking happened? I've seen the movie before. I read the script. I literally told you.
Reese, keep raising your hand, man.
We're forgetting about it. We're forgetting about a classic from the beginning of the year of the Park-Schaefer argument. What about Ohio taking care of Iowa State? What about that one too? That's
the MAC is light years behind Division I football.
Can't shit on the MAC, buddy.
Speaking of, I think Twitter's dying to see a video out there, Parks, to get posted.
Oh, yeah. I'll get it out. That's my bad. I actually have a career, Jake. So
yeah,
Facebook's loving it right now.
He doesn't have a job; he's got a career.
It's a career, man.
Lifetime.
Hey, speaking of the MAC a little bit, let's go to the conference title point game. We had a tie at the top. We dethroned the champion, the back-to-back champion. Now have a tie. We got to figure out how we're going to break this tie. Reese and Jake both tied at 6 total. I think I would like to break the tie.
Jacob, me and you.
Yeah, Reese, great job. Who was our winners? I don't even remember.
He had Miami of Ohio and Washington or Bama, and you had I don't know, your freaking picks. I can't remember off the top of my head. Who did you have? You have Liberty.
You had a 3, 2, and a 1.
Oh, I think I should
Liberty,
win
Boise State. I think you had
3 wins. If I had 3 teams correct, I think I should win the tiebreaker.
I had 3 teams too, but I ended up with 5 points.
Yeah, but I took a gamble on Ohio, buddy.
Miami of Ohio.
It was 4 points, not 7. It wasn't that big of a gamble.
Took a gamble.
Relax.
Still counts.
We got to figure out how we're going to break that tiebreaker. We'll figure that out I think we'll do it in bowl season. We'll do it in bowl season and it'll like a pick 'em or something like that. Just have a little fun with it. But I had 5, Parks 0.
Yeah, I just thought I'd give back. I just thought I'd give somebody else a shot at the title.
It's fair. I appreciate it.
Hey, we're being on top for so long. It's tired. It's boring up here.
Georgia missed a playoff too. What do you want me to say?
We're going to save the favorite bowl game thing for next week when the bowl games start. We'll go into that stuff. Let's quickly just talk about Army-Navy. We have the Commander-in-Chief trophy is on the line this weekend. I believe if Air Force wins, it's a 3-way tie, and Air Force would retain that for another year. If Navy wins and beats Army, Air Force would retain that in a 3-way tie. If Army wins, they are the Commander-in-Chief trophy champions. This will be a really fun one. It's always a great time to watch this one. I think it's at 2 on CBS this Saturday. Little preview into Army-Navy. What are you guys thinking on this one?
It's a bowl game for both going 5 and 6, which surprisingly, normally one of those two would be in a bowl game. Yeah, like even with 5 wins. So this is really all it is for both of these teams to kind of end the year. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have much on either one of these teams. I've watched Navy a couple of times this year. It's a pretty bad football team. I think 2.5 is a good play. If you're going to be betting this game, as one does, take Army with the 2.5 points. And JP, I think you need to let the listeners know there's a play out there that needs to be desired.
Take the principal play.
I don't know, man. I didn't get to it on Sunday in time as I was just dealing with other stuff. But this number is so low. Like, is it's
really
it's at like 20?
There's one thing I've told you about unders. There's one thing I've told you about unders this year, JP. I took Iowa's unders when it was 27 and 28, and it hit every time.
I'm just letting you know. The principal play is in play here. The service academies are playing. You take the under. The public just knows, has just been all over it now, and I'm sure that number will continue to drop. At some point, it can't get any lower. Reese, go Army, beat Navy, right?
Go Army, beat Navy. We show up for big games. Remember when everybody thought Air Force was the big, bad, scary team? Put up 17 of them in the first quarter. Get the fuck out of here. Go Army.
This might be the most, like, the only time that somebody can say we when they're talking about their team and be like, yeah, that makes sense. That adds up. So enjoy that. That's a nice touch.
Big games.
Yeah, I like Army in this one as well. It should be a ton of fun to watch. One of the best ones to watch every year. And usually a classic. They're usually really close games, lower scoring, obviously, with both of them running the option. But maybe we get a little more high flying. They've opened up their offenses, each service academy, just kind of, putting some wrinkles, a little modernization into it. But that'll do it for this episode. We'll have more into what do you got, Parks?
I was just going to say, I love this game. This is America's game. It doesn't matter whether each team is good or not. That's the best part. It doesn't matter if one's 11-0 and the other one's 2-9. Like, they're going to compete. It's going to be a dogfight in the trenches, and then they're going to sing afterwards. And it's the most American thing ever. The flyover. Army versus Navy with armed forces in the stands. It just doesn't get better.
This was Parks' #1 draft for the rivalry, I believe.
This is the best. They put it on their own day. So this is one of my favorite games of the year. It's going to be awesome.
Should be a ton of fun. Hey, we'll have more bowl previews, and we'll preview each week as we're going through the bowl games coming for that next week. It should be a ton of fun. Really excited to get into bowl season. We'll give predictions for the college football playoff and what our champion, who we think that'll be. We appreciate you guys listening and tuning in on YouTube or following us on TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook, all over the place. Really do appreciate it. Again, at Play the Fight Pod on most things. TikTok, I believe it's at Play the Fight Song. Thank you. Appreciate it. Schaefer, take us away before Army Navy this weekend and before the bowl games.
Go Army.
Play.